Welcome Motivation Sunday. Welcome Motivation Sunday.
Welcome to another edition of Motivational Sundays with Kevin and friends. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you we've got something special for you. I am joined today with my co-hosts, Mr. Travis, Miss Lois, Miss Larnez, and Miss PJ. And hey, I'm Kevin Macklem. I'm your show host. For those of you that are just tuning in and this is your first time listening to the show, let me tell you how we all got started. A long time ago, I had about 300 motivational quotes that I was using for the contents of my books, my speaking. And we started this show just based on quotes, based on interpretation perspectives. Then I got kind of bored with myself. Said everything's not about me. I have all these wonderful intellectual people surrounding me, and every time I talk to them, they lay some knowledge on me. So we want to go ahead and pass on some of these quotes that they carry with them and share it with you. And based on interpretation and perspectives, we created the show. We meet every Sunday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. One of our co-hosts brings a quote, throws it out there, gives his or her interpretation on it, and then we have a conversation. We could do a little roundtable. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn the show over to the voice of our show, Miss Lois Campbell. If you don't mind, before Travis begins, give us the quote for today.
Grand Rising, everyone, gladly. The quote for today is Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. And that's by Bob Marley from Jamaica, Irie man.
Right, man.
Thank
All
you.
right, man. Travis, man. Uh, I, you know something? If I had met you and your mother many, many years ago, I'd have been in Cool Running because I had 2 weeks to learn how to do a Jamaican accent. And coming from Dayton, Ohio, I didn't know anyone that had a Jamaican accent. And I had auditioned for that film. And so now, man, we're going to see how this quote, how you bring this quote to us, man. All right? How does this quote land on you, man?
So thank you for the introduction, Mom. I love you always. Just wanted to play this for you real quick, so we all know where the
You
quote's
can only play
coming
a
from.
couple seconds, otherwise we got to pay Bart Marley.
Only a couple seconds. Only a couple
All right, you can
seconds.
stop now.
But yeah, to me, that line is just a reminder that any of us can carry beliefs that limit us if we never stop to question them. Right? Mental slavery can happen when something we picked up from our past or environment, fear, someone else's opinion. It can convince us that we're not smart enough, experienced, connected, wealthy enough, or even ready before we ever give ourselves an opportunity. And that's why it kind of reminds me of another quote. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And we've all heard, if you believe it, you can achieve it. All these sayings point back to the same place, right? Your mind. That way you think. That way, the way you think affects the way you believe, or what you even think is possible. And it affects the opportunities that you pursue. All right, the rooms that you enter, the chances that you're even willing to take. So sometimes the biggest limitation is not what actually is in front of us, but it's the belief we have accepted about ourselves. There is a story I once heard about fleas being placed inside of a jar with a lid. At first, they jumped repeatedly, hit the lid, and eventually adjusted to stop jumping high enough to reach it, or just high enough to reach it. Then the lid is removed, but they continue to jump at the same limited height because they have already learned where their belief is. The ceiling is their belief, right? The lid is that ceiling. Now, I don't know who had enough free time to sit around training fleas, but the message stayed with me. Sometimes the lid is already gone, but we continue living as though it's still there. The job is no longer holding us back. The person who doubted us is no longer around. The past situation has ended. The opportunity is now available. But we're still jumping at that same limited height because we accepted that the limitation is part of who we are. So that is why freeing your mind has to begin with you. People can encourage you, they can teach you, mentor you, introduce you to the right people, and even open the right door for you. But at some point, you have to believe that you belong in the room, and you have to walk through that door. As I always say, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them pee. I know that is not how the original saying goes, but I promise you'll remember my version. The point is, Someone can guide you toward an opportunity, but they cannot make you recognize it, believe in yourself, or even take action. I experienced that same shift in multifamily real estate because at one point I believed owning apartment buildings was only for major institutions or people that were already extremely wealthy. Once I started learning, I realized that regular professionals, business owners, and people just like you and I can combine experience, knowledge, relationships, and resources to participate in these opportunities. Once that belief changed, it changed the way I viewed the industry. I started studying deals, building relationships, asking better questions, and seeing a path that I couldn't see before. The opportunity didn't suddenly appear. My mind became open to enough to recognize it. I believe that can happen in many areas of our lives, and sometimes we're waiting for circumstances to change, but the first thing that may need to change is the way we view ourselves. So I think we all have to ask ourselves a question. What lid am I still living underneath, even though it may have already been removed? Who told me I couldn't do that? Was it actually true, or have I repeated it for so long that it started feeling like truth? Someone wise once told me, mentality equals ability, the rest is time and effort. And I truly believe that. Your mentality determines what you're willing to pursue. Your time and effort determine how far you're willing to take it.
But you know something, young Travis?
Mm-hmm.
There is no lid placed over your head. Okay. And I'm going to say this out loud. LeBron James, welcome to Philadelphia. The roof. We have taken the roof off the top because we're no longer that flea. But your statement and this quote from Bob Marley from his song Redemption says a lot. All right. You often ask yourself if you're one of 13, if you're one of eight, and one of four, you've all been stimulated by the same environment. How does one lower the bar in their life? And how does one exceed the limitations of that bar that's been raised for them? All right. And it's all about chance and choice. You can either jump to your limitations or you can jump and see what expectations that you expect of yourself. And so this is the ground. And this is what happens. And I'm going to give you a statistic. I just spoke at Cheney University, the first historically Black college, a couple of days ago. When you look at the fact that there are people that were denied education, but there are people that died in order to have an education and provide. And those people that carry that torch forward had a responsibility. What was that quote we had? The healer suffers first and then the medicine. Well, Bob Marley was the healer growing up in Jamaica, going against adversity. The people on this podcast, we are that healer that we suffer first, laying the groundwork for our brothers and sisters and misters and misses that follow us to create footsteps of their own. So this quote is a very powerful quote. And I hope for our listeners that you are that person that is looking beyond that glass ceiling. You are that person that instead of taking that first step, you jump, all right, and see what steps follow you behind you. And so we're going to find out how this quote lands on Miss PJ. All right, because I know that Travis, today it's tough to follow you. Normally we fear Larnez, but I'm going to tell you, boom, 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 boom. Hey, it's been rise. It's high today. PJ, take it
Yes.
over. Take it
Okay.
over.
Okay. I'll do my best. Good morning, wherever you are in the world. It may not be morning, but thank you for joining us. Always good to be here. So, this quote, it places responsibility exactly where it belongs, not on our circumstances, but on our own minds. It's mental slavery, and it can wear many disguises: fear, resentment, anxiety, other people's opinions, and past failures. None but ourselves can free our minds. Others can encourage us. Teachers can guide us. Friends can support us. And God can invite us. but no one can choose our thoughts for us. The Apostle Paul expressed a similar truth nearly 2,000 years ago. And he said, "Do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Perhaps freedom doesn't require changing your circumstances. Perhaps it begins by changing the story you've been telling yourself. Your mind can become either a prison or a passport. This week, I have a question for you. This week, ask yourself, what belief have I accepted that no longer deserves authority over my life? The end.
It always amazes me. PJ, when she drops knowledge on you, she take a pen and paper because she's going to give you homework. It's going to make you think a little bit. That it is so funny to be around so many people um, that have followed this quote that Bob Marley has given. My grandfather had something that he said. I don't know if I can repeat this. I know last time I said this on the show, Dr. Stan left, but I'm going to say it anyway. He said, "Free your mind, and your ass will follow." And me being young, not wanting to repeat that, when he explained to me what that exactly meant, he told me a story about a farmer that had asked his son to go ahead and plow the 2 acres in order to prepare it for to be harvest. The son went out and he grabbed the donkey, dressed the donkey, but he couldn't get the donkey to move. So later that night at dinner, the father turned around and said, "Did you plow the field?" He says, "No, sir, I couldn't get the donkey to move." And he says, "Son, I'm very disappointed in you." He said, "I got to have it done by Monday." And this was on a Friday. So Saturday morning, he got up, he grabbed the donkey, and he was very angry, pulled on the donkey, kicked the donkey, whipped the donkey, and still the donkey didn't move. And when he came in for dinner that night, father looked at him and he goes, "You didn't plow the field, did you?" And he said, "No, Papa, I didn't plow the field." And he said, "I'll do it in the morning." So the son went out, sat by the donkey. The sun was still up. And he apologized to the donkey. It's for berating him, for beating him, for mistreating him, disrespecting him. And he looked at the donkey looked at him, he put his arms around the donkey and hugged him. And their hearts came connected. And then the donkey started to move. To the dismay of the young man, he got behind the plow. And before sunset, father woke up that following Monday and both fields were plowed. And son told him what had happened, and the father repeated it, and he said, "Free your mind, and your ass will follow." And that just tells you what the power of love, compassion, respect has for human life. And when you talk about mental slavery, you talk about the one limitation. You can put bars in front of another person, and that person can live within the confine of those bars. But if their mind accepts that they are trapped, just like those fleas, they never will rise above. So this quote, I'm going to ask the voice of our show to give us this quote for those who've listening and those people that I have bored with my small message before we turn it over to Larnez. And I will say, ladies and gentlemen, if you have never flown in a 747, you've never been asked to raise your tray table up, to buckle your seats, prepare for turbulation, because it's coming. All right. Larnez is going to bring you something. So Lois, would you go ahead and give the people, our guests, and from around the world, we're all the way in Dubai, Qatar, we are in South Africa in some places. People are listening to us all over the world, and we welcome you. Lois, all right? I know you've been in America for quite some time. let's go ahead and peel back and give us this quote from the motherland, from Jamaica.
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds, by Bob Marley from Jamaica.
All right. So, Larnez, all right, we're ready. Here it goes.
Well, Radiant Rising, always grateful to be here. To me, I think we need to be honest. One of the greatest hustles ever sold was convincing people that freedom is only about what's happening around you instead of asking what's happening within you. Yes, systems matter, history matters. Racism, sexism, classism, and every other ism have left real scars on real people. Pretending otherwise isn't wisdom, it's denial. But here's where Bob Marley pushes us deeper. He asks, now that you know the system exists, what are you doing to keep it from living rent-free in your own mind? Because oppression doesn't always need to raise its voice anymore. Sometimes it whispers through the beliefs you accepted without ever putting them on trial. I'm not smart enough. I probably fail. People like me don't get these opportunities. I have to keep proving my worth. That's not always your authentic voice. Sometimes that's inherited programming. And here's the thing about programming. If you learned it, it can be unlearned. But you can't rewrite code you've never bothered to read. That's why self-awareness isn't some trendy wellness buzzword. It's data collection. Start paying attention to yourself the way a scientist studies a discovery. What situations make your shoulders tense before anyone ever speaks? What consistently leaves you feeling energized instead of emotionally bankrupt? What stories do you tell yourself every time you make a mistake? What environments make you shrink? Which one reminds you of who you really are? That's data. It's not drama, it's data. Because every repeated reaction is your nervous system handing you information. The goal isn't to judge yourself. The goal is to understand yourself well enough to stop confusing survival with your identity. Here's something we don't talk about enough. Building capacity isn't about becoming stronger so you can carry more suffering. It's about expanding your ability to stay present without abandoning yourself. It's developing enough emotional space to pause before reacting, enough self-trust to question your first assumption, enough courage to ask, is this actually true or is this just familiar? That's liberation. Every time you interrupt an old pattern, you're freeing your minds. Every time you choose curiosity over shame, you're freeing your minds. Every time you stop letting fear make decisions that belong to your purpose, you're freeing your mind. Freedom isn't just about breaking chains. It's about refusing to rebuild them with your own thoughts. So this Sunday, don't just pray for a different life. Study the mind that's creating the one you already have. Collect your data, increase your capacity, challenge your conditioning, because nobody can do the inner work for you. And that's exactly what Bob Marley was reminding us. None but ourselves can free our minds. And I am complete.
You are definitely complete. This was information versus wisdom. And I hope that our listeners not only share this show, but you're taking notes. When you talk about critical thinking in a digital age, we live in a state of fear, and that comfort shapes our beliefs. It's time for us to wake up. It's time for us to break down those barriers. Stop believing the lies and accepting the lies as the truth, and start being honest with yourself. All right. Are we trading profit for humanity? Or are we just being selfish, just for the simple fact of just being selfish? It is not all about you. It's about all of us. So we have gotten to that point in this show when all of our co-hosts have shared their take and their takeaways on this quote from Bob Marley. I'm going to ask the voice of the show to give us the quote one more time. And then I'm going to ask Lois to give us her interpretation of the quote before we close the show. Lois, the voice, take it away.
Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds, by Bob Marley. So I've sat here and I've listened to all of my co-hosts on the show, and it's amazing. I don't have much to say, but I'm just gonna add that self-fulfilling prophecy is I don't know, I'm gonna say bad thing for lack of a better word, quote unquote. But mental slavery comes first before chains, before colonization, and freedom starts with laws, politics, money can change conditions. None but ourselves can free our minds. No leaders, government, or movement can do the unlearning for you. It has to be from you, it has to come from within you. So, this quote is very powerful, and I grew up with it, or most of my life since it came, and we've been living it excuse me, for a while every day. It's like our parents taught us, our parents instilled in us, churches instilled in us rules and regulations. But it's you within yourself who has to take control and move with it and say, okay, I'm going to do this. Not because I had a negative experience. And like most of you said, fear or any kind of distractions can come, but you hold on to that thought that where you're going, what you need to do, all the positives that you should carry in order to free yourselves mentally. Because the mind really is very, very powerful, and it can control us or lead us in a negative or positive way. So you decide which way you want to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And to all of our listeners, we want to thank you for tuning in. Show's not over with yet. You know, normally it's the voice of the show, and then I give my take. This quote um, reminds us that lasting freedom begins in the mind. There was a guy that was on America's Got Talent. He had been incarcerated for 30 years of his life, and he had this amazing voice. And Howie, at the end of his song, and they gave him the golden ticket, asked him, he says, with this voice, he says, how did you spend 30 years incarcerated in a system knowing that you were wrongfully convicted and you were locked up for the rest of your life? He said, how did you not become a prisoner? And he told Howie, he says, they incarcerated this body. He said, but for the whole 30 years, I knew I was right. He says, they could not imprison my mind. So when you look at this quote, it challenges us critically. It questions the assumptions that we are who they tell us we are and not who we want to be. We have to continue to learn, and we have to take responsibility for our own beliefs and our choices rather than allowing fear, habits, and outside influences to completely shape who you are or what you could be. The limitations you place on yourself is that prison that someone has told you that you stay in this box, don't go outside of the box because there's nothing good that's ever going to happen to you. You know, like my grandfather said and Bob Marley said, and they phrased it a different way, but the same thing when you talk about mental imprisonment. You know, you got to free your mind. All right. And education is not designed to make you comfortable. It's designed to make you think. We live in an age of technology where education is a little bit of a distraction because it's convenient. It doesn't challenge us to do more because everything is simple and we consume information faster, but are we really learning? but to develop wisdom, compassion, and independent thinking. Today's conversation and Bob Marley's quote reflects on how we grow, how we question, how we become better human beings. So when you say free your mind, it's not one that claims to know everything. It is that one that reminds us to stay curious, stay humble, be courageous, and committed to a lifelong life of learning and treating others with dignity and respect. I'm going to throw out another stat. In HBCUs, because of this mindset, 1 out of every 3 Black men that enter an HBCU drop out before or by the end of the first quarter. Not because they're not gifted, not because they're not smart. It's because it's an environment of higher learning that they weren't prepared for. And so I'm asking each and every person that's responsible for another life is to raise that bar. Focus on the step today, not the staircase. So I hope if you find this conversation useful, be it mine, be it Larnez, Travis, PJ, or even Lois, take a little bit of piece of every last one of us and get out of that comfort zone and go out there and jump beyond where that lid has been placed on you. So if you want more information, like to be part of the show, or maybe even give us a quote that we may not have used yet. We've been on the air as of August 4th. It'll be 5 years. You can find us on our YouTube page at RMK Productions and Network, or you can email us at rmkproductions@org. My grandfather always said, when you get to a point in your life where you can help someone else out, he said it's your duty to do so. He said, reach one, teach one. And with that said, we what?
Fade to black and make sure you come back.
All right, all right. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to wake up, all right, and stay positive. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Welcome Motivation Sunday with Kevin and friends.